Hi there. In this lecture we're going to have a look at the fried liver attack. So this comes from the Italian game. We play bishop c4, and I do have a course dedicated to the Italian game if you want to check that out. It is an ideal beginners to intermediate opening, and it is used by grandmasters a lot as well. It's actually revived in popularity. Now the two knights defense, this is one of the two main moves available. It's quite a clear structure actually. These are the two main moves. So Gioco piano, bishop c5 or knight f6. Now here we can play the knight attack variation. This is not compulsory to play the knight attack variation. Now black has d5. After e takes d5, the best move for black theoretically seems to be knight a5, at least from a modern engine perspective. So black kind of gambits a pawn here, and it's an interesting situation. But the focus in this lecture is if knight takes d5 is played, which is technically a mistake. This is actually a mistake already. So guess what white can play here for 10 points, which is actually the strongest move in the position as well. So we really haven't gone that much out of our way for this sequence. Yeah, we play knight takes f7. It's a great case of bringing the king out, the pattern of bringing the king out with great effect. And we have now this nasty pin, nasty looking pin. So the really good news here, the super good news, is what happens on queen f3 check. So this is a multi-purpose move. It's not just check, it's looking at d5. The best move for black by far is to play king e6. Let's look at good news around this position and super good news. So the super good news is if king g8 is played, we can now force a checkmate. It has elements of the fool's mate here on this diagonal. This diagonal, these other pieces around the king are completely irrelevant to helping parry this check. Black can only delay, and it's a checkmate on that kind of diagonal of death. More so because look, the lack of escape squares. So we could have also gone with bishop takes d5. It's going to lead to the same position. Bishop e6 is just an immediate checkmate, so they would have to give up their queen, and it's still a checkmate. So that's the super good news. So really, they must play here the move king e6. It's the only move to try and stay in the game. We have a very powerful move here, knight c3. And again, there's another key move that black should be aware of here, which is really, at least from an engine perspective, the only way to stay in the game, which is knight c to b4. Knight c e7 is actually a mistake, and we should be getting a very clear advantage here after the move d4. This seems to be one of the more accurate moves. So for example, c6, we castle, and we have in this position the idea of taking on e5, which seems a bit counterintuitive, but then the idea is to open up this d file against that pin. The pin becomes the center of attention. So for example, g6, d takes e5, and we can focus quite a bit now on the d file potentially. So say here knight c5 check, we're opening up the king in any case. So this is just very dangerous. Queen g3 check, rook d1. We can focus on that pin now, that pinned knight, which is pinned against the queen now. And it just leads to a very big advantageous position. So for example like this, crashing through on d5. So yes, that would be also, in theory, very, very good news here. Actually, if they did this move knight c to e7, it's a natural move which you might see a lot of players play. This is all covered in my course on the Italian game. So knight c b4 is actually theoretically strongest. And we have two options. Castling may actually be the very strongest option here. And we do have an advantage in any case. After d4, this position, queen d1, that d file interest is evident here. We do have a nice advantage in this position. So anyway, to recap, the very, very good news in the fried liver attack is if they go to g8. Also, other good news, let's look at here. So if king e7, we're just taking on d5. There's no real backfire here. It looks as though, well, the queen's holding the bishop. But look, we're on f7 as well. So if knight d4, we can play now queen f7 check. And, okay, c2 is under fire. We can just play knight a3 here. This is a very powerful position. So in this position, it looks as though, well, let's count minor pieces. 3 minor pieces, 3 minor pieces. We're not a piece up or anything, right? But after knight c4 check, let's say king d7, we take on e7 and now protect c2 with king d1. So this is an example. So we are a clear pawn up and there is pressure on e5. So let's say c6, bishop e4. We do have a nice big advantage here. It's a great position to start off with. We have got a better structure and we might be winning material soon when we start pressurizing black's pawns. So yeah, we have the more solid pawn structure and easy targets like e5, relatively easy targets. So king e7 is not really that great. King e8, we're going to take on d5. So we got our piece back. Count the minor pieces. 3, 1, 2, 3. We're threatening queen f7 checkmate. That needs to be addressed. Now let's say queen f6. A very good move here is bishop takes c6. So that's like damaging the opponent's pawn structure. Let's say b takes. So in fact, the very best move is to cause a weakness here on dark squares. g6. And just return back. So we've created weaknesses on the dark squares. This is a very good position for us. And we've got this nice blockade square against that isolated pawn later to consider. That's a beautiful blockade square, so that's a big advantage for white as well. If queen f7, what would you play here for 10 points? What's the very strongest? Yeah, I wouldn't be baited by the pawn here. Taking actually on f7, simplifying here, and being confident that, look, we've got a solid, non-controversial advantage in pawn structure. The shattered pawns of black give us a really good game. We have a massive advantage here. If we indulge in queen takes e5 check here, we're potentially giving black some counterplay, which is visually unpleasant. The advantage is not as big as just taking the queens off. So these are critical lines which represent, in my view, very good news about the situation. The other option, what about king g6? Well, here bishop takes d5. Even though the queen seems it's a bit fragile, it's not really because we're on f7. If knight d4, bishop f7 check, king g5, d3 check, king h4, and guess what here? Yeah, we have a killer common square. Queen h5 is checkmate. So yes, black really needs to know what they're doing if they're entering into this variation. And technically, it is actually a mistake from an engine perspective to allow this very powerful, very accurate piece sacrifice. The fried liver attack, as it's known, has been a major point scorer, a continuous evergreen point scorer in chess, because the Italian game is one of the most beginner-friendly, well-structured openings to get to grips with. Check out my course. And yeah, there's the disastrous king moves available here. So king g8 being the worst, king e6 being basically essential. But usually players also slip up here with knight ce7. And if you know your stuff, you're getting fantastic positions here after knight ce7 for white. So okay. Thanks very much. Thanks for checking out this free sample trap video. If you want more information about traps, I do have a dedicated course on Udemy, more than 20-hour course, a fun lover's guide to the major chess opening traps. What's more, you can get a big discount if you visit kingscrusher.tv, so that URL top left. Now, also, just to help me on YouTube, I hope you do leave a comment. Any comments or questions, any traps you think should be covered, please let me know in a comment. Leaving any comment would be greatly appreciated if you got to this point of the video. Okay. Thanks very much.